Today, we will go over the process of applying a color overlay with added tips and design. In the case that your client wants to extend their nails, tips may be added in this process. In this tutorial, we will go over a design on one finger that showcases a matte and glossy finish. If you follow this tutorial step by step, you will achieve a beautiful looking set of nails using the Cachet Dipping Powder. First, you must use the Cachet hand sanitizer before you proceed onto the next step of the application. It is important to sanitize your hands and the client's hands before starting any process involving the Cachet Dipping Powder. After sanitizing the client's hands, use a very fine sand band drill bit gently above the surface of each nail. This is to clean the nail, remove shine, and pushes the cuticle up the nail so that the powders will adhere properly to the surface of the nail bed. Do this with every nail for both hands. After filing down and cleaning up the nail bed, proceed to add on the nail tips onto the free edge of the nail. Trim the extensions to the desired length. This is the result after adding on the nail extension. After the nail tips are added, slightly file the surface of the nail tips so that the dipping powder will adhere properly. Continue to brush off the excess dust from the client's nails and file down to the desired shape. First, apply the prep. Prep, or also known as number 1, contains vitamins and nutrients such as calcium and vitamin E to nourish the nails and promote healthy growth. Apply the prep directly onto the cuticles and the area that the nail is growing. Continuing on, we will be using the clear powder. When working with any colored powder, we will need a layer of clear powder before the application of the colored powder. This is to act as a protective coating to the surface of the natural nail. Continuing on, you will need the base coat or number 2 liquid. The base coat contains essential nutrients such as calcium as well as vitamin E. Before continuing, we will even out the gaps between the extensions and the natural nail on each finger. To do this, apply a thin layer of base coat onto the center of the nail of where the tip and the nails meet, and then dip each finger into the clear powder to even out the surface of the nail. Afterwards, apply the base coat 2/3 of the way up the nail, and then dip into the clear powder to create a foundation for the dipping powder. Complete this process for each nail before moving on. Brush off the excess powder before continuing on to the next step. For today, we will be using the number 3 purple for the nails and the number 38 ebony for the design on the ring finger. Remember to flip the containers like so, upside down once to create a consistency suitable for dipping before moving on. We're ready to open the jars and begin. Apply the number 2 base coat close to the cuticles, making sure not to touch the cuticles directly. Dip once into the purple powder. Continue by brushing off the excess powder after every added layer. The second time, apply the number 2 base coat again completely up the nail, covering the entire nail, making sure not to touch the cuticles. Dip the finger once more into the colored powder, matching and making sure that it is even with the first coat. Today, we will be skipping the ring finger for the purposes of adding on a design later in the video. Apply the number 2 base coat close to the cuticles, making sure not to touch the cuticles directly. Continue by dipping the nail into the purple powder. Brush off the excess powder as needed. The second time, apply the number 2 base coat completely up the nail, covering the entire nail bed, making sure not to touch the cuticles. Dip the finger once more into the purple powder, making sure that there is enough powder to evenly cover the surface of the nail. Brush off the nails so that there is no remaining powder on the areas in and around the skin of the cuticles before moving on. For the ring finger, we will continue by adding a design using the matte base finish effect as well as a glossy finish for the tip. Continue by applying the base coat all the way up the nail and then dipping into the ebony powder. Brush off this finger, making sure to remove all the excess ebony powder. Remember, when working with the ebony powder, make sure to carefully brush off the excess powder, making sure that the finger is clean before moving on. Apply the second coat of number 2 liquid all the way up the nail, and then dip the nail completely into the black powder. When dipping into the black powder, make sure you have enough powder to cover the entire surface area of the nail bed before moving on. Brush off the nail completely to remove any excess powder. Finish by brushing off completely the rest of the nails as well, making sure that there is no powder on the sides of the nails as well as around the cuticles. Start by applying the number 3 dry coat. Apply first on the cuticles and then the rest of the nail bed. Make sure that when applying the number 3 dry coat, not to use an excessive amount of the number 3 liquid, just enough to cover and dry the entire nail bed. Wait for approximately 30 seconds to 1 minute before proceeding on to adding on the base coat. Continue by applying the number 2 base coat onto the nail, making sure to cover the entire nail. This process is to protect and seal the nail as well as the color overlay. Afterwards, file down the nails to the desired shape and size requested by the client, at the same time cleaning underneath the nails as well. After filing down the nails, use a very fine drill bit to smooth out the surface of the nail bed. This is to remove any bumps or ridges on the nail. Remember that when working with a color dipping powder, make sure not to file too much off the surface of the nail. This would cause the nail to become thin and the color will lose its richness and tone. Gently buff the nails to smooth out the surface of the nail. Make sure not to buff too heavily so as not to remove too much of the colored layer. Remember to buff underneath as well as around the edge of the nails as well. Brush off the nails to remove any excess dust and powder. On the nail with the design, using a smooth yellow buffer, buff until the surface is smooth. We will not be using the number 4 top coat on this finger. When buffing with a smooth buffer, we will retain the matte finish. After buffing, continue on to spray the Cachet alcohol to sanitize and clean the surface of the hands and nails. Wipe off completely with a clean hot or dry towel, making sure that the hands are dry and clean before moving on to the next step. After cleaning off the hands, apply a layer of dry coat or number 3 liquid onto the cuticles and the entire nail bed. After applying on the dry coat, wait for approximately 30 seconds to 1 minute before moving on to the next process. For the finger with the design, we will apply the glossy number 4 top coat onto the tip of the nail only, creating a smile or curved line. When applying the glossy top coat onto the tip of the finger with the design, make sure that it is even throughout the tip. After, apply the glossy top coat evenly for the rest of the nails, making sure that the first coat is applied on quickly so that the brush does not dry out. The second coat can be more detailed, covering the entire nail bed. For the design finger, make sure to only brush the tip of the finger. Using a fan or by air drying, let the nails dry for approximately 2 minutes before moving on to the next step. Using the Cachet cuticle oil, which contains vitamins A and E, brush the cuticles of the nails only. This process is to soften the cuticles and promote growth, as well as providing nutrients to the nails. Remember that with the Cachet cuticle oil, always to massage upwards towards the finger and not towards the nail. After finishing up the last step, your client now has a beautiful set of nails using the Cachet Dipping Powder. Using the applied methods, you can achieve the desired look using the color overlay with added tips and design. For more information, visit www.cachetdp.com or contact us at 561-358-0026.